There are few things more unspeakably selfish and evil than a mother deciding to take the life of her own defenseless child simply because they are an inconvenience to her. For a mother to take the life that she helped create goes against every law of nature and humanity. In this video, we'll explore 3 shockingly horrific cases of mothers who killed their babies because they were tired of being moms. First, we unravel the cold and calculated actions of Galina Ryabkova, a Russian mother who, in a moment of shocking indifference, turned her back on her 2 young sons, pushing them off of a 15th-story balcony to their deaths. Next, we confront the deeply tragic case of Andrea Yates, the Texas mother who drowned her 5 children in a bathtub, driven by voices she believed came from God. Her story forces us to face the devastating impact of untreated postpartum psychosis. Finally, we examine the case of Tiffany Lucas, a young woman whose fatigue and frustration boiled over into an act of fatal violence, leaving her 2 beautiful sons lifeless and an entire community struggling to comprehend the horror. How did these mothers get to a point where they believed killing their children was their only choice? Let's keep watching to find out. On one sunny day in June of 2012, a 27-year-old mother named Galina Ryabkova stood out on the 15th-story balcony of her Moscow apartment, planning to commit an unthinkably horrific act. She was in the process of a messy and complicated divorce from her husband, and knew that there was a likely chance that she would have to share custody of her 2 sons, a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. That was a thought that she just couldn't handle. Galina had decided that she was never going to give her estranged husband even a chance to take her children away from her, so she had planned the ultimate act of revenge. Confidently, she had climbed out onto that balcony, pulling her 2 young sons along with her. She had coaxed them out to the balcony by promising them they would throw paper planes over the side and watch the fall down. Little did they know what she had actually planned. Before anyone nearby could see her and realize what she was about to do, Galina stood on the edge of the balcony and violently pushed both of her sons off the edge, sending them catapulting to the ground below. Frantic witnesses of this horrific act rushed to the boys' side to try to help them, but sadly, the children would soon die from the severe injuries they sustained in the fall. It was a graphic and disturbing scene. I was standing near the window and heard a loud smack. I did not pay attention, thought that the child just stumbled and fell. But then I heard one more smack, described one neighbor. Galina didn't bother to try to hide the fact that she had just pushed them, and even caught on surveillance footage going down to where their bodies were laying to make sure they were really dead. Another neighbor said, "My wife woke me up and said that there were children falling out. We ran out and saw 2 children lying on the ground in front of the main door. Just at that time, their mother was leaving the building. We asked her if these were her children, and she replied, emotionlessly, 'Yes, I threw them away.'" Witnesses say Galina was calm and appeared to show no remorse as she looked into the faces of her dead children, one of them still clutching a toy that he had carried with him up to the balcony. She called her 2 sons little angels, who are now flying to heaven. She was quickly arrested and charged for the murder of both of her children. It was later determined that her estranged husband had been away on a business trip at the time, and she had decided to kill the children before he returned home. When she was later asked by the cops why would do such a thing, she replied, "I just decided to get rid of them." After undergoing multiple mental health tests, it was determined that Galina will spend what will likely be the rest of her life in a psychiatric hospital. Many believe she deserved a harsher sentence after what she did to her 2 precious boys. On a quiet summer morning in June 2001, in the Houston suburb of Clear Lake, a mother made a devastating decision that would forever alter the course of her life and the lives of those who loved her. Andrea Yates, once celebrated as a supermom, carried out an unimaginable act. She drowned her 5 young children, one by one, in the family bathtub. But Andrea's story is more complex and controversial than you might expect. This is because the reason she supposedly did this wasn't out of maliciousness or hatred, but because of genuine mental illness. However, there are still some people who believe that it could have been her exhaustion due to being a mother of 5 young children that drove Andrea to do the unthinkable. For years, Andrea battled postpartum psychosis, a rare but very severe condition that distorts reality and plunges its victims into a world of delusions and despair. Andrea's mental health had been deteriorating long before that fateful day. Doctors had warned her husband, Rusty, not to leave her alone with the children. She had attempted to take her life on multiple different occasions and had told doctors that she was afraid that she might one day harm her children. Her husband, Rusty, recalled one of these terrifying incidents.
She had a knife held up to her neck, and it's like she's looking at her neck trying to figure out how to cut herself so that she could successfully kill herself. And I said, "Give me the knife." And she said, "Let me do this." And I said, "No, give me the knife." And she wouldn't do it. She just stood there like this. So I grabbed her arm and pulled it down, and I pried the knife out of her hand.
Rusty was able to stop his wife from taking her own life, but was at a loss for how to help her. Despite all of these incredibly obvious red flags, Andrea was left isolated, overwhelmed, and untreated. Shockingly, she also decided to have yet another child, a little girl named Mary.
They decided to have another child.
There's the baby in there.
Ignoring a doctor's written warning which said that doing so would surely guarantee future psychotic depression.
Most people would agree that someone as mentally unstable as Andrea probably shouldn't be adding even more to her plate with a fifth child, but the couple believed that if Andrea did get depressed again, she would simply undergo more treatment. Unfortunately, by this point, her condition had worsened dramatically.
Within months of Mary's birth, Andrea Yates' depression returned with a vengeance. It was a depression which her husband says led her to murder their children.
Andrea began hearing voices and experiencing vivid delusions. She believed she was possessed by Satan and that her children were destined for eternal damnation unless she saved them. In her confused mind, the only way to save her beloved children from this fate was to end their lives while they were still young and innocent. On June 20th, 2001, Andrea finally acted on these terrifying beliefs. Filling the bathtub with water, she drowned her children one by one: 2-year-old Luke, 3-year-old Paul, 5-year-old John, 6-month-old Mary. Finally, 7-year-old Noah, who tried to escape when he saw his baby sister floating lifelessly. Andrea wrestled him back into the tub. When it was over, she laid their tiny bodies on the bed, covered them with a sheet, and called 911. It's hard to imagine what this woman must have been thinking and feeling the moment she came out of her delusion and realized what she had done. Did she look at the bodies of her 5 defenseless children and feel regret, or was she still completely numb? These were the kind of questions that people across the nation were most curious about when it came to this case. The aftermath of the tragedy shocked the world. How could a mother, someone who nurtured and loved her children, commit such an act? Forensic psychologists quickly identified Andrea's psychosis as the main driving force behind the killings. She was deeply delusional and unable to grasp the reality of her actions at the time. Because of this, her husband made the shocking move to choose to forgive her and to continue to stand alongside her as she prepared for trial.
You're not angry with her? You don't blame her for what happened?
I don't blame her a bit, and that's people find that just outrageous, I know, but I don't blame her one bit.
Andrea's case sparked a national conversation about postpartum mental health and the dire consequences of untreated illness. During her 2002 trial, she was initially convicted of capital murder. However, the verdict was overturned on appeal, and in 2006, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Andrea was sent to a mental health facility, where she has remained ever since. Now 60 years old, Andrea has spent over 2 decades in treatment, coming to terms with the devastating impact of her actions. She reportedly watches home videos of her children and looks at their photos, grieving the lives she took in her state of psychosis. Despite being eligible for annual evaluations to determine her readiness for release, Andrea has repeatedly declined and does not want to be released. Her caregivers believe she finds comfort and safety within the structured environment of the hospital, a place where she can process her grief and guilt while receiving ongoing treatment. Her longtime lawyer spoke out about her condition, claiming that she's doing well, but still lives every day mourning her children.
There's not a day that goes by where she doesn't care for, talk about, is happy about her children's lives before June the 20th, and grieves for her children.
In the quiet community of Bullitt County, Kentucky, a horrifying tragedy has left a community grappling for answers. Tiffany Lucas, a 32-year-old mother, has admitted to doing the unthinkable. Her 2 young sons, Maurice, just 6, and Jaden, only 9, were found inside the family home. Authorities say they were alive when emergency responders rushed them to the hospital, but neither survived.
Officers arrived at this home on Bentwood Drive around 11 Wednesday morning, where they rushed 2 young boys just 6 and 9 years old to the hospital.
They were alive and remained so until they got to the hospital.
Police believe this woman, 32-year-old Tiffany Lucas, shot and killed her 2 sons.
It all took place on a seemingly ordinary day, when all of a sudden neighbors heard a series of shots from Lucas's home. Moments later, Tiffany was seen staggering out of her home, pleading for help, claiming her children were dying. When the cops arrived, she lay in her neighbor's driveway, disoriented and distressed but not able to explain what had just happened. Later on, Tiffany would be arrested and charged with the murders of both of her sons. During questioning by law enforcement, Tiffany offered a very strange explanation. She claimed someone gave her the firearm, and insisted the whole thing was an accident. But then her story took yet another bizarre turn. She mentioned feeling manipulated through Facebook, the internet, and even her home's Wi-Fi. She was seemingly trying to suggest that she was coerced into this heinous act. But a judge, unconvinced, set her bond at a staggering $2 million, labeling her a threat to others. Check out this courtroom footage of Tiffany appearing for her bond hearing. Her arms are crossed and she looks like she is annoyed to even have to be there. Her arrogance is on full display.
Police say 2 young boys were killed by their own mother. Tiffany Lucas was arraigned in court this morning, charged with 2 counts of murder, and she will be staying behind bars on $2 million bond.
As investigators dug deeper into Tiffany's past, they searched for some sort of red flag or explanation for her behavior. What they began to put together was a very disturbing picture. Once a small business owner, she had a quick period of success after opening her own store in 2016. But soon, things spiraled. She faced drug charges in 2018 and began struggling with addiction. Her life was falling apart right in front of her eyes. The home where Tiffany had once lived with her 2 boys was a chaotic mess and littered with notices that she was in the process of being evicted. Despite all of these things, Tiffany worked hard to put on a facade of a happy life through social media. Her Facebook page is full of haunting pictures of her and her 2 boys posing together and looking as happy as can be. These posts paint a picture that couldn't be more shockingly different than what was truly taking place behind closed doors. Some people close to Tiffany and the boys claim they were aware that things weren't right with her and even suspected the boys might be in danger. They say they tried to sound the alarm, reaching out to Child Protective Services with concerns. But like so many cries for help, they went unanswered. Now the result is the loss of 2 precious boys who should still be here today. As the case began to unfold, many people were desperate to learn the truth about Tiffany. Was she really a cold-blooded killer who viewed her sons as an inconvenience that she no longer wanted to deal with? Or was she a woman pushed beyond the brink by addiction and mental illness? These answers were expected to be revealed when she went to trial in December of 2024. But on the day that the trial was expected to begin, there was an incredibly shocking turn of events. Tiffany entered a guilty plea.
Tiffany Lucas walked into court, ultimately pleading guilty to killing her 2 sons in Bullitt County almost 1 year ago.
Ms. Lucas, on count 1, do you admit and plead guilty to the offense of murder?
Yes, sir.
On count 2, do you admit and plead guilty to the offense of murder?
Yes, sir.
The 2 boys, Maurice and Jaden, were just 6 and 9 years old.
Tiffany offered no explanation or excuse when it came to why she chose to kill her own children. This led people to come up with their own conclusions, many believing that she was tired of the responsibilities of being a mother and saw murder as a way out. Because of this, multiple family members expressed their belief that Tiffany should die for her heinous crimes. An aunt of little Jaden and Maurice lit into Tiffany at her sentencing, telling her she will never forgive her for what she did.
The only peace I have in this is knowing that you can't hurt them anymore. And
But it was the grandmother of the victims who had the most unforgettable victim impact statement, her deep pain obvious in her words as she looked Tiffany right in the face and told her exactly what she thought of her.
My heart is in pieces. And you know that you have always had a place to drop them off. You took him from me, and I hurt every day. Every second of the day, I hurt. And I hope they give you 2 life sentences without the possibility of parole. I want you to suffer just like I'm suffering right now.
Ultimately, this heartbroken grandmother got her wish, and the judge did decide to sentence Tiffany Lucas to 2 life sentences without no possibility of parole. That is 1 life sentence for Jaden and 1 life sentence for Maurice. While many people would have preferred to see Tiffany die for what she did to these boys, it was clear that this was the next best option when it came to ensuring they got justice. Throughout the sentencing, Tiffany reportedly showed no kind of emotion or remorse. If there is one thing that each of these cases prove, it is that some people truly do not deserve to ever have children, and that more should be done to protect the children of unstable or abusive mothers. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Until next time, sleep tight.